Yes. So F1.
Yes.
How we got to where the race was, Bottas got a 3-place penalty, Max got 5. I can't even remember the reasons for these.
I was going to say this is
there's
over a week ago.
Yeah, there's but it didn't. In the end of the race, it didn't really matter because by the end of the first lap or by the second lap, Max was already back into P2, so he was chasing Lewis. But Hamilton was too quick throughout the entire race. It was too fast. He led from start to finish. Didn't even lose that position through the pit stops because he was that quick. The biggest story probably from the race in Abu Dhabi was the front left tyres failing. I think in the end we had 4 failures. Bottas had his blowout. Perez.
It was back at Qatar, right?
Qatar. Yep. You are right, Qatar. Abu Dhabi's the one coming up. I was trying to remember which one it was. So, yes, back at Qatar, sorry. Bottas had his fail. I think Norris was close. He was losing pressure, so they brought him in. And then I think one of the Alfa Romeos and then one of the Williams also had failures. There's at least 4 that had – actually, Bottas was the big one because he was kind of in position for some points. In position for fighting for third place with Perez, but it really took him out and he didn't make it in the top 10, which was good for Alonso because he held on for third place for his first podium, I believe, in close to 100 GPs, which takes us back to some time in like 2014 or 2015. Long time between drinks for Alonso. Mugs, you might want to find the exact time he was back on the podium. Max did get the fastest lap in this race. So both championships end up very close. And if you wouldn't mind as well, Monks, to make you work overtime, bringing up the current standings in the championships and the difference between the two. Because my understanding for this week's race at the Saudi Grand Prix, is this in Saudi Arabia or is this? Yep. Yeah. So this is in Saudi Arabia. It's going to be a night race. There's a couple ways for Max to potentially win the championship at this race. But let's first go to the standings. So Max is at 351.5 to Lewis's 343.5. So in total, what's that quick math? 8 points between the two of them?
Yep.
So I think it works out. If Max is first and Lewis is 6th or less, he wins the championship. If Max is second, it's 5 positions essentially. He's got to have 5 positions. Fastest lap adds a point in there about. Potentially Max can win the competition, win the championship this round. If Max doesn't score and Lewis does, he can still potentially win the title back at the final race of the season, making it very, very close. Where's the constructors at while we're looking at standings? Teams, because I think this also very close with Bottas not scoring in Qatar.
We've got Mercedes at 546.5 and Red Bull at 541.5. So it's still flip of a coin between those front two.
Yeah, still very, very close in that, and it'd be interesting if Red Bull wins the Drivers' Championship and then also loses the Constructors. It kind of shows how close this season's been. Another bad day for McLaren and another good day for Ferrari. So I think Ferrari probably got that third space sign up. They do have almost 40 points by the looks of that on top of McLaren. So that's a bit disappointing for Lando and Ricciardo, how they were going. But hey, they're still well clear of all the other teams, and there's definitely going to be there in a fight next year. Hopefully, with some of those regulations to push them into the next echelon, like fight for positions, fight for more podiums as such.
Yep, that's it.
So finish up on Qatar. There's no Qatar race next year because of the World Cup we mentioned earlier for the football or soccer will happen next year. So I think they didn't want to overlap, whatever. But either way, the following year when they come back to Qatar, they're not going to use the dedicated motorsports arena they have been using, which has 3 or 4 different layouts for the circuit because they can change it depending on what corners they want to use. Looks like it'll be a street race through
That's
Qatar.
interesting to go away from a purpose-built arena to go to a straight race. It would be interesting in Qatar.
Yeah,
Obviously, a lot of tall buildings.
I wonder if it's maybe more location-based, getting it into the CBD.
Yeah,
or
sure.
maybe not directly in CBD, but more closer to that. Maybe potentially getting more people into stands and into crowds, or more people at the event than where they have the current track, which could potentially be a little bit outside of the normal kind of areas of the city. So to finish up, we've got 2 races to go. Saudi Grand Prix is coming up. Really, really close competition. We had talked about Max kind of favouring up for the championship, but Lewis has roared back in. I'm not sure if James, you can find out about the engine situation in Mercedes. I think there's been some chat that Lewis could potentially take another engine, take his 5-pace grid penalty.
Yeah.
Considering he's already used his allotment of engines for this season, but if he takes a 5-place grid penalty and it still, gives him such a huge advantage over what Max is doing, does he do it anyway to push that agenda of potentially winning?
Yeah, so earlier on in the week, there was rumours. Marco Helmut from Red Bull was saying that they felt pretty good with the next couple of races, that Mercedes Hamilton's engine wouldn't have the same power as what he's had in the last couple of races.
Because last 2, he's just been so much quicker than everyone. You could see it.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if you've got any news there, Peps.
No, I can't really find much, although a lot of people are scorning the fact that Lewis Hamilton has had to change his engine so many times. But in terms of the rules and the legality of it, I'm not that sure. Also coming from not the biggest F1 aficionado on the table here.
Well, what you're looking at there, also Alonso kind of something coming out. It's like, hey, you only have a set limit you're meant to use through the season. If you break that limit, which they would if they take another engine, the 5th place is not good enough. Send him to the back of the grid, which would be a huge penalty. So they wouldn't do that if that was the case. So,
and I mean, it wouldn't matter too much between teams such as Mercedes and Red Bull, but if you've got Mercedes that's bringing in new engines every other race and they're competing against a lower team that don't have the same budget as Alfa Romeo or as Alpine, then you can understand why Alonso is feeling a little bit dirty about it, because how can he compete when they're playing within the rules because A, they have to because it's the rules, and B, because they haven't got the money to spend on rebuilding new engines every other race week.
Or getting freshly built, like brand new ones.
Yeah, that's it.
Straight out of the factory versus a rebuilt one.
Yeah, so I suppose there's the argument that Hamilton sort of just, I wouldn't say cheating his way, but...
well, we saw in the last, at least the 2 races in the last, since he took that engine penalty, just how much quicker it is. Like, it is a significant benefit, so...
Yeah,
if it's within the rules, that go back to that gamesmanship conversation.
Well, yeah, that's it. That's probably more gamesmanship than anything else. Like, if he can take a new engine, take 5 grid penalties, and still win a race, then
well, if he wins he has to win the next 2 races, and if Max finishes second in both, he would then win the championship by a couple of points. Like, it's make or break for him currently. So if it's within the rules, why wouldn't you potentially to get your 8th championship? But
that's it. Well, I mean, it's an interesting storyline. Like, it's obviously a win now mentality. What does that mean next year with all the regulations, new cap on spending?
Everything changes, I think, next year.
Everything changes.
Aero, wheels, tires, everything's different. So everything could flip on its head.
Yeah, that's it. So
you think most of the big teams that have invested heavily will have invested heavily in next season, based on under their cap, of course. But it's I don't think it'll change that significantly from where it is now. I think it might close the gap a little bit more to what did we see? I think we saw Lewis and Max lap, 15 or 16 of the competitors have a lap down on everyone. Maybe it'll be closer where most of the teams can stay on the lead lap and be more competitive in the racing. Who knows? We'll have to see. But it's really firming up to be a great end to the championship that hadn't been very close in recent years.
No, it's the closest that I remember the last few years.
Yeah,
so.
Definitely. And, will we have a defined champion by the end of this race? I don't think so. It wouldn't surprise me if Max and Lewis are 1-2 in some order again, and we'll have to go to The final race of the season, where is that, Monks?
Jeez, what?
Emirates, isn't it?
Yes.
So we've got the Saudi one, and then we go to Emirates. Okay, cool.
I'm learning.
Yeah. So the final kind of sad news during the week. So Frank Williams did pass away, F1 legend. I'm not sure if you got some stats there, Pepe, but well loved throughout the paddock. Of course, knighted for his achievements throughout the sport.
Sir Frank Williams.
Yeah, Sir Francis Williams. He was the founder of the Williams team.
Of course.
And he was like pretty much the boss from 1977 until 2020. So in the game for just about 50 years. In that period, he won 9 constructors championships and 7 drivers championships as a boss,
As a principal, yes.
of Williams there, and he's passed away peacefully at the age of 79 in the last week. So Vale Frank Williams, a legend of motor racing.
Yeah, and loved in F1, especially, of course, British motor racing. He knows all the British boys coming through, being head of Williams, having George Russell there, but also working with Lando and Lewis himself, and even Nico Rosberg. Like everyone kind of knew Frank Williams, or Sir Frank Williams, as you will, throughout the sport. So, yeah, heavy hearts and a big loss. A lot of outpouring on social media from the F1 community during the week for his passing.
Had an accident himself in the 1980s, so was actually wheelchair bound since 1986. So definitely take my hat off to anyone that was strong enough to stay mentally sound through such a abhorrent accident. So yes, spent the last 35 years of his life wheelchair bound. So Vale to Frank Williams.
Yeah. And especially in a sport like motor racing, where of course he would have loved motor racing and driving himself. Yeah, to end up that kind of accident is,
well, that's it, because I think he was initially, after the accident, he was a tetraplegic, so everything were paralyzed from the neck down, and then I think he was able to get some mobility back in his arms.
One arm. Horrible, but a legend of the sport. So he'll be missed. Shout out to Frank Williams, and thoughts with his family.